She told me once that every November or whatever, her former husband sent her one rose.
On the anniversary of our divorce, my husband always sends me one potted yellow rose.
And that meant so much to her. And I once talked to her about him, and she had only a certain amount of empathy for him that he had to put up with her.
Oh, well, Charles never would have stayed married to me. I even lost the vacuum cleaner once, and they still haven't found it.
Thelma was the wise woman of the West. She was bright. She was a true pro. She learned. The method is a mysterious term. It's like you become a born-again actor. And born-again actors can be very difficult because they think no one else knows the answer. Gable and Thelma knew the answers.
When we went back there to shoot the film, the woman still lived there. She met Marilyn on the set because we were shooting right next to her house. And she said to me, "You mustn't be too nice to her." I said, "What do you mean by that?" She says, she wouldn't explain that. She just said it. And it's a strange thing for her to have said.
I think it's a subject that makes the interest and not so much what the photographer brings to it. To work on a movie set with a lot of interesting people is obviously going to be more interesting than to work on a set with dull people.
The camera doesn't lie. Elliot was like a shepherd trying to get 5 sheep who wandered all over the place. And his great triumph was to get all of us gathered that day.
I was just a photographer on the set. You know, I just mind your own business, take pictures, and drink with the boys afterwards.
He knows the tricks of the trade, and he's hoping that he'll get a cheerful shot maybe. But all of us came with our own angst, our own bile.
When you're a photographer, you just take pictures of what's in front of you.
Arthur standing there magisterial. Huh? Frank Taylor, if you look at his hand, is leaning away thinking, "Oh God, what have I gotten this group together?" Gable is an old hand at posing for pictures. And Marilyn is a master of the camera and photography, a master.
I would suspect that people are reading all kinds of things. If that picture did not include these famous people who all went to heaven prematurely and so forth, then there wouldn't be much to think about.
Well, I'd read the Misfits, the original story in Esquire, because I read pretty much everything that Miller ever writes. And I sort of had it in the back of my mind that it was an extraordinarily good and filmic story. But I didn't put 2 and 2 together and had no idea who was doing it. I saw one of those little theater scripts on Wednesdays, which said that Frank Taylor was going to be producing the Misfits. And I knew who Frank Taylor was, but I'd never met him. And it did say where he was. So I thought, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So I went directly from the train to his office. And I said, "I'm Lee Jones from Magnum, and I need to talk to Frank Taylor. I have a great idea." And he said, "I think we have the same idea." So I said, "Mine is for Magnum to have total photographic exclusivity. It's never happened on a film before. This is clearly," and I had no idea what was coming down the pike, but this is clearly going to be much more than, an entertainment story because of the people in it and what was going on. And it'll blow up in your face unless it's controlled by people who care about what happens to the people they photograph, who have some sense of responsibility. So he said, "Well, we got a deal."
I was going to photograph with Henri Cartier-Bresson, and we were in New York, so we planned, we go across the country, so we rent a car, and we went, because America was a big adventure. Certainly to me, I'd never been across America, and I didn't know much about America at all. So we rented a car, and we went a very complicated route, Blue Ridge Mountains and Mississippi, and these all the, literary sites. and finally arrived in Reno, which is so American and so Western that it was just marvelous to look at it. And we arrived at the Mapes Hotel. The Mapes Hotel was where more or less I think everybody was lodged. And there was a bar, and on the side was a kind of a table, and on it lay Frank Taylor, whom I'd never set eyes on. Frank Taylor wore checked pants, which I'd never seen anybody wear, and a loud shirt, kind of very red or something. And I was just so intrigued by this man lying sideways and being the producer of a movie. You know, producers to me were serious-looking people. So all of this was exotic. And naturally, this being such an American movie was also exotic to us. So in a way, we approached it from our very European point of view.
We did the first take. She couldn't, not a take, but a rehearsal. She couldn't get all the lines done. This happened maybe 6 or 7 times. And my performance is going out the windows. I'm really trying to do my stuff, but it gets interrupted. And whatever the secret I had for myself of how to play that scene was gone by the time she finally was coming up the stairs and standing there in front of me.
I just got off the plane. I'm not too late, am I?
I don't want to hear anything.
Just give me 5 minutes after 2 years. 5 minutes isn't such a lot.
You can't have me now, so you want me, that's all.
And Houston is saying, I can't hear her. I can't hear her. Is she saying all the lines? So he said, I've got an idea. Let's run a wire up Kevin's leg. Run a microphone up here and put it under his tie. So you won't be able to move, Kevin. Just stand right there and do it. And I was thinking, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it. And she still wasn't saying her full speeches. She came up maybe 17 times.
Please, I'm not blaming you. I never looked at it any different. I just don't believe in the whole thing anymore.
Kid, I understand. I understand.
You don't understand. You're not there, Raymond. If I'm going to be alone, I want to be by myself. Go back. You're not going to make me feel sorry for you anymore.
And Houston says, she say them all? I said, yeah, everything's all right. Well, great. Thanks, Kevin. It's nice working with you. There wasn't going to be a shot on Kevin. Nobody's ever going to see this performance.
We felt a lot of things here that were, you know, it was fairly monumental by anybody's standards, don't you think?
Well,
I mean,
yes, but we've had 40 years to chew it over.
Exactly.
You know, but I think when we were here, we'd watch it and we'd think,
there was more glamour per square inch than anybody had ever seen before. I mean, everybody had a parade. John was a parade all by himself.
Yeah.
I mean, just with nobody else in the picture.
True.
And then this girl, the reason we all came here was just this one blonde girl, and nobody should forget that.
It was an anxious set. There was a tremendous amount of tension. I mean, first of all, everybody would get there. It was 110 in the shade, and sit around, and you can drink only a certain amount of coffee in the heat. And Marilyn wouldn't show, and would it get called, or would it not get called? And by the time things did get going, all sorts of decisions had to be made about scenes to cut or drop, and the light was bad, and planes kept flying over, and that kind of stuff.
she didn't exactly behave towards, I felt, Arthur, or certainly to the crew in the politest possible way.
She would come into a set where everybody had been waiting for hours and hours, angry, very whatever. He'd walk on the set and nobody said it was, she'd not been late. He said,
I used to get the office.
Stuff that Baptists rant about is amazing.
He would gamble all night and have his bath and change his clothes, and he'd show up as fresh as a daisy, go through another 24 hours of madness. We became very good friends, Houston and I. I spent a lot of time with him.
Yeah, one night, Clark Gable was by himself, just having dinner. And so I'd go in and sit down and talk to him. And you could see the casino, and John Huston was in there making a real hubbub. He was playing craps. He had a drink, a cigar, and a girl under each arm. And he had a big crowd. He was a real attraction. So Gable said, look at that guy. He's the same age I am. If he keeps up that lifestyle, he'll be dead in a few years. Of course, Gable died shortly thereafter, and Houston went on for another 30 years or so.
The first day I worked with Clark Gable, I forget, I'm in the truck, he's looking in the window, and we're staring at each other, and I'm thinking, this is the king of the movies. I hope he doesn't know that I didn't even see Gone with the Wind. No? And he's looking at me and thinking, who is this kid?
I tell you, I'm dying for some fresh air and no people, male or female. Look, why don't we take out to the mountains? Maybe we could even do a little Mustanging up there.
Well, I wanted to pile up about 500 this time. That ought to get me a new engine.
Oh, that engine will fly you anywhere.
And we're like the boa constrictor and the rabbit. You know, they're looking at one another.
I'll see
And Houston said, will you two, for God's sake, stop staring at one another? We have a movie to make.
Tom Dooley.
He said, what is it? I said, well, and Gable said, well, he said, hold it, bring out some Jack Daniels. And we each had a sip, and then we did the scene.
I was shooting for Life magazine as well as other magazines, and he didn't want to be photographed for Life. And he said, no, when I met him first, and that was to be it. And then one day, he was doing a scene, and I went to see the Rushes.
You come here now!
He was in a wonderful scene in which he falls, and he's drunk, and it was brilliantly done.
I know you hear me! I know you hear me! You come here now!
And when the lights came up, somebody said, what do you think, Mrs. Arnold? Was somebody behind me? And I thought it was one of the grips. I said, it knocked me on my ass. Oh, hello, Mr. Gable. And he said, you've always wanted to do a story on me. Well, now, anybody who talks like that is in my good books. You can go ahead and do it.
Monty was the most gentlemanly of the whole bunch. I was assigned to him. I went off to Pocatello, Idaho with him, where he was going to observe the rodeo cowboys. And throughout, he always was calm, collected, very much at peace with the situation. Mm-hmm. And I found him a very attractive human being.
Dennis did a lot on James Dean, and I think that sort of segued into Monty Clift. There was a similarity in their life view. And I think Dennis sensed that, and I think Clift did also.
I love one little thing about Montgomery Clift. Before we started filming, he fell off a horse in one a bull, and did his nose like this, said to Mr. Houston, what am I going to do? And Houston said, we'll use it. Don't worry about it.
First, you all right?
Did I make the whistle?
Almost, boy. You done good, though.
That old horse. He sure was rank, wasn't he?
Oh, he was a real killer. You done good. Leave him alone, Roz. You'll get it.
Considering what he came from,
the tortured personal life,
he carried himself extremely well.
And he was letter perfect. I mean, the first day he did that scene instantly.
Perfect.
And Clark Gable, I heard him say it. He said, my God, he's really good, isn't he?
We drive up in the car, Thelma, me, Clark Gable, and Marilyn.
Hey, Gay, stop. Huh? That guy next to the phone booth.
There was an actual phone booth standing in the middle of the desert, as usual, and the absurdity of that place is marvelous. It was just a phone booth in the middle of the desert, with one wire going up to a pole to Reno. And they were prepared to shoot for a whole morning because of Monty's reputation.
Oh, excuse me. I got a call in for home.